Have you ever heard a sound that made you feel homesick for a place you cannot fully name? Not a clear memory. More like a soft pull in your chest. A smell can do it too. The taste of a simple dish. The way sunlight hits a wall at a certain hour. But sound is strange. Sound enters you even when you are not ready. You can be walking down a street, half thinking about tomorrow, and then a melody drifts out of a window and suddenly you are somewhere else. Not in your mind like a picture. In your body. Your shoulders loosen. Your throat tightens. Your eyes change. And you do not always know why. That is the quiet power we forget about when we talk about culture and tradition. We speak as if tradition is a museum object. Something to protect. Something to label. Something to keep behind glass. But tradition was not born behind glass. Tradition was born in daily life. It was carried by hands. By voices. By breath. By the repetition of ordinary people. A song sung while cooking. A rhythm tapped while walking. A lullaby whispered in the dark when a child will not sleep. And then something happened in the modern world. We became very skilled at choosing what looks modern. We became very skilled at chasing what looks cool. We learned to treat the old as embarrassing. Not always with cruelty. Sometimes just with a shrug. We did not mean to reject our roots. We just wanted to belong to the present. The context matters. Because this is not one country. It is almost everywhere. Many young people grow up learning what is popular and global first. The guitar. The piano. The pop style that travels easily. The sound that fits the stage and the screen. The sound that gets claps fast. The sound that fits a playlist. And then the traditional instruments sit quietly. They wait. They feel like homework. They feel like the past. They feel like something your grandparents love, which is exactly why you might not want it. Because when you are young, you do not only want music. You want identity. You want to feel that you are moving forward. You want to feel that you are part of what is new. So the first surface insight is this. Tradition cannot survive as a duty. It survives as a desire. You cannot preserve something by telling the next generation they should. Should is heavy. Should feels like guilt. Should makes people hide. If you want a tradition to live, it has to feel alive. It has to give something real. Not only history. Not only pride. Something personal. Something that fits the inner life of a young person today. Because no one falls in love with an obligation. People fall in love with a feeling. With a sound that hits something inside them and says this is mine too. This is where the second insight appears, the hidden assumption. We often assume that modern means better. Or at least modern means more valuable. Even when we do not say it out loud, we act like it. We use words that link coolness to being foreign, being new, being far away from home. And we use words that link being local to being behind. This is not just language. It is a mindset. It is a story we inhale. And it changes what we want. It makes us reach outward for approval. It makes us look away from our own soil. Not because the soil is bad, but because the soil feels ordinary. And ordinary does not feel impressive. But the hidden cost is that when you treat your own roots as something small, you start to treat part of yourself as something small too. You may succeed. You may become famous. You may stand on a stage. And still feel a quiet gap. Because you are performing with tools that connect you to the world, but not always to your own story. This gap does not always hurt at first. Sometimes it feels like freedom. Like you escaped something narrow. But later, often later, you notice the gap in a different way. You notice it when you try to answer simple questions. Where do I come from? What shaped me? What do I carry that is not copied from somewhere else? What do I want to pass on? And then tradition stops being a burden and becomes a hunger. Not for rules. 4. Connection. The third insight is a structural pattern that shows up in art and also in personal life. You cannot keep something alive by copying it perfectly. You keep it alive by using it. By letting it change in your hands. A tradition that cannot change becomes a performance. It becomes a costume. People may admire it, but they do not live in it. A tradition that can change stays close to the human body. It becomes a language again. Not a display. This is why the most interesting artists do not just repeat the past. They return to it, and then they bend it. They combine it with something else. They bring it into a new room. They put it next to a sound that does not belong there at first. And then something happens. The old sound wakes up. The new sound gains depth. And the listener feels a bridge form under their feet. Not a lecture. A bridge. This is a key difference. Preserving ashes means treating tradition like a dead thing. Preserving fire means treating it like a living heat. Fire moves. Fire spreads. Fire changes shape depending on what it touches. And you do not keep fire alive by putting it in a box. You keep fire alive by feeding it. By giving it air. By letting it burn in new places. When a musician takes a traditional instrument and plays it in a way that is creative, not disrespectful but alive, they are not breaking tradition. They are doing what tradition did in the first place. They are using it to speak now. This reframing changes the whole problem. The problem is not that traditions are dying because young people are careless. The problem is that we asked young people to carry traditions like heavy furniture. We asked them to move it without letting them sit on it. We asked them to protect it without letting it protect them. But tradition was never meant to be a museum job. It was meant to be a relationship. Something that gives and receives. Something that holds memory and also makes new memory. Music is one of the best examples because music does not need translation. It does not ask for permission. It can cross time without logic. And it can carry meaning even when words fail. This is where the daily life application becomes very real. Because you do not need to be a famous musician to feel this. You can feel it in small ways. Maybe you grew up hearing a song in the kitchen. You did not think about it. It was just there. Then you move away. Years pass. You forget the words. And one day you hear the melody again and suddenly you remember the room. The table. The sound of dishes. Someone humming without trying to perform. That melody becomes a thread. Not because it is perfect. Because it is attached to love. And in that moment you understand something about preservation. We preserve what we attach to life. Not what we attach to rules. If you want your own culture to stay alive in you, you do not need to become traditional in a strict way. You can do small acts of reconnection. Learn one song. Learn one story. Ask an older person about one detail. Cook one dish the way your family used to. Not to prove anything. Just to touch the soil again. And then you can be creative with it. Put a new spice in the dish. Mix the song with a new rhythm. Tell the story in your own words. The goal is not to be pure. The goal is to be connected. This is also why music can become a bridge between generations. Not because everyone agrees, but because everyone can feel something at the same time. And this brings us to a deeper layer without changing topics. Memory is fragile. We like to think we are made of thoughts and words, but many of our deepest memories live somewhere else. They live in patterns. In tones. In the way a certain lullaby falls on the ear. This is why a person may forget names and dates and still respond to a melody. Because the melody is not only information. It is a pathway. It leads to feeling. It leads to safety. It leads to a time when someone cared for you. When a lullaby passes through generations, it becomes more than a song. It becomes a form of contact. Like a hand reaching through time. You do not need to understand every word to feel it. And even after someone is gone, the song can still create a sense of presence. Not in a spooky way. In a human way. Because love leaves traces. And sound can carry those traces longer than we expect. When you sing a melody that an older family member sang, you are not only remembering them. You are also becoming part of the chain. You are holding the fire for a moment. And you are proving that tradition is not only something behind you. It is something that can move through you. It can become the space where past and present meet quietly without fighting. So if you think about your own life, your own roots, your own old songs, your own old phrases, your own old sounds, what is one small piece of your own soil that you could touch again, not to worship it, but to feel the warmth of it and carry it forward in your own way?